Hello everyone, it's Chris here. And today's going to be a little bit different because I actually want to speak about four books in one go. As I explained to you in other videos, it's a bit odd how I wrote the books. I mean, I started with codename BF0565, which we spoke about before. And even though it's a first book ever written, it is not the first book in time. But at that stage of my life, I had different priorities. And one of the priorities I had was to warn the world about what I called the Muslim truth. Now, I've explained that in other videos, but let me just explain it again because I'm not sure, of course, which videos you've seen. And if you're new here to the channel, you're very welcome. Please subscribe, press the whatever button, the thumbs up, the usual things. And I hope you find it interesting because it is a channel where we speak about my books, and I'm hoping to get other uh, authors as well here at some stage. But right now we're just speaking about the books. Also, be warned, my cat is here. He's lying in the chair next to me. He's out of focus, but he might jump me because we're quite close. Now, just to get the story into perspective to you is that all the books has basically the same characters in, unless, of course, it's non-fiction. If it's non-fiction, then there's no need for the characters. And all the books, if I discuss anything of history or, spycraft or tradecraft or start mentioning weapon systems, things like that, you can absolutely take for granted it's true. And it's also so that a lot of the things we discuss in the books, which were written before the Legacy Conversation channel, where many of you know me from, a lot of the things they say on Legacy Conversations actually confirms what's happening in the books. And if you've read the books, many times you would hear Special Forces say something and you say, whoa, I've read about that in the GMJ books. And I say again, these things were done before Legacy came into being. In fact, the two run together because if you like the books, you're going to love the Legacy channel. And if you like the Legacy channel, where we speak to military veterans, police veterans, people like that, South Africans, mostly Euro-Rhodesians, one American, but mostly South African, then you would love these books. I mean, the two run together. Why they're not really being read, I don't know. It's a puzzle to me. But, as we offer, I'm damn biased. I can tell you that too. So the story continues. So if I could just summarize for you, there's this spy master called Angelique Dawson. And she is a spy master. She's not a spy handler. She's much, much more senior. In fact, she is as senior as you can go. She is already the head of counterterrorism. She is going to be, in some of the books that comes out, she's also now promoted to head of counter-espionage, which is not a field she likes, because the two just don't mix. You cannot take a guy, a glorified policeman who hunts spies for a living, and then go and make him a spy. They have a different outlook. And the reverse is also true. You cannot take the spy and go and want the spy to go and actually arrest his fellow spies. He's not set up like that. He's totally a different human being. One believe in the laws of a country. They almost have a police type of mentality and outlook to see whether they can actually arrest people, get them to court. Not always. Sometimes you just listen and you do nothing. And then the other guys are a bit more bold. They go and they spy and they kill and they murder and they steal and they lie and they are never to be found inside the country anyway. Well, they shouldn't be. They should be working outside because they are so dangerous. You always like that? No. If you read Codename OSTM, That definitely plays off inside South Africa. Blue Tang as well. Quite a few of them. Codename Moonlight as well is within South Africa. But there are very good reasons for that, and it is explained why it happens like that. Usually, you shouldn't find your own spies inside your own country operating. But of course, we all know rules are there to be broken, and if you can get away with it and there's need, I'm quite sure you'll do whatever needs to be done. Now, you will also remember that I said to you I wrote the books in reverse order. Simply, once again, because at that stage, Muslim truth was very important to me and I wanted to bring it out. Now, a Muslim truth, for those who don't know what I'm talking about, it's constant right through the books. All the books, all 54 of them. In some books, it's more prominent than other books, but it comes down to the following. When you are my generation and older, you probably think of South Africa as a NATO-orientated Western type of country. Because that's what it used to be since the First World War, Second World War, Korea. We all fought on the side of the Allies. In other words, Britain, US, against what you would call the fascists or the Axis or people like that. And we did very well. We fought very well. We are a nation of, well, my wife always say we're bloodthirsty, but that's after she saw a rugby game, which wasn't that bad, to be honest. Let me say like this to you. If you grow up in Africa in the days we grew up, and before us, you learn to fight and shoot at a very, very young age. And so you have that mentality. I mean, you also had to go into your military service. If you couldn't do your military service or you wanted to go to the police like I did, then you'll go and do that. And there's books written about that time of my life as well. And let me also say that the old South African police force got nothing to do with sheriff department or with Bobby on the street or whatever in the UK in the first place. I think we were a lot fitter. And we were paramilitary. In other words, there was saluting going on. In fact, I always say to people a bit tongue in the cheek, but think of the US Marines with police powers, and you kind of get what we were like. Of course, we were never able to fly, fighter jets and things like that, but we did have our own special forces unit, which is rated very well. And if you go again to Legacy Conversation, you'll find some of its members talking. It's not me. I've never been there. I know my limitations in life. But that was a lot more than just a SWAT team. That was true special forces. In other words, they could do anything which any other top special forces unit can do. And they also have dropouts, failure of a selection, which takes a year with all the different phases, same as for Army. But go to Legacy, you'll find out very highly trained people. So it was a different setup. So we think of South Africa still as Western orientated. We were a friend of America, but not anymore. Also, in the old days, we were a friend of Israel. Not anymore. Definitely not. The new people who took over with Mr. Mandela, and they're not new anymore. I'm just using the word new, so you understand the old and the new. It's a completely different mindset. It is, as Mr. Mandela said, your friends are not my friends. And of course, we can say, well, my friends are not your friends. You know what I mean? But the country has changed. The country has become a BRICS country. BRICS is something which the West is only waking up to now in 2025 when I'm making these videos. But since 2014, I've been warning. When the first book came out, codenamed VFO 565, and that is actually the name. This VFO 565 wasn't used just without reason. This is the code which was flashed across Africa to get the sleeper agents back in the mold. It is explained in this book and others as well. Like all the names refers to something. If you're in the know, you will definitely get the message. If you're not in the know, you'll probably never know. And that's good also. But the fact of the matter is, After the changes came in 1994, South Africa suddenly had very strange friends. Suddenly you had like a full embassy going on in Moscow. You would close down your embassy in Taiwan and open an embassy at Beijing. So suddenly these people we were thinking of as the enemy with every reason in the book, since they were supporting the people who are now in power, suddenly they became the friends, they became the mates, and suddenly you had like Russian Air Force strategic bombers landing at our Air Force bases, flying with our aircraft. Suddenly you had the South African Navy conducting exercises with the Chinese one, the Russian ones, as well as, we have to say, NATO as well. And it's also fascinating if you read Codename Blue Tank, which is a fighter pilot book, you will find out that South Africa has missile test ranges, very big ones, very advanced. In fact, there are copies of the ones in Israel. And what they do there is they don't physically test a missile to shoot it and to let it explode. That's a lesser part. That's almost unimportant. What is important here is that they test the telemetry. In other words, they test how this thing functions, and it's all computers, and the aircraft will simulate things, and then they send signals down, blah, blah, blah. Fascinating, because in that book, and the one which follows it, I think it's OSTM, I mentioned that there's a bay, it's right next to the Indian Ocean. And I mentioned there that there are submarines in that bay sticking their antennas out, and they are listening in, and they are grabbing this telemetry. And it's fascinating that the South African government always invites something like a Luftwaffe or, from the Far East Air Forces, but never one from China or Russia. It's always like the enemies of BRICS. Not anymore, because some of them has now joined, but at that stage. Then, it's a funny things going on there, because there's a lot of espionage. It's also so that the South Africans also have a capacity to snatch that telemetry out of the air, even if it's encoded, it can be broken. So there's this entire espionage effort going on there at Wifferton, which people don't know about, and it's just their eyes are this big when you tell them or they read the book, and they're like, no, this can't be. You know what? In fact, the Air Force has something called JARIC, where they also use these interception intelligence type of stuff. And so we had a guy actually on Legacy called Jacques Detroit, or Jacques Detroit as we would say. And Jacques, when came out, he said he was a captain, great guy, spoke at length. And then he mentioned that there was a submarine in one of his bays, probably stealing this telemetry. Bingo. It's a classic example of a JMJ book being confirmed without that guy even knowing about the book, which is why they are probably suppressed. There's lots of truths in them. But because South Africa now has changed and they've become a BRICS country, they are, if not outright the enemy, that will come in the future. But they are definitely not a friend of the West, not at all. I always say to you, if you're Jewish and you live in South Africa and for some reason you're watching here, lots of combined operations of Mossad in the books, but get out. I don't think you should stay there. I don't think it's going to go well with you in the future. Just a warning. I don't want to talk more about that. People will probably try to crucify me, things like that. But you know what? That's what I've seen, and that's what I fear is going to happen. So if you can get out, get out. I say the same of any other person. If you have loyalty towards the US and NATO, and you have a child serving in the Foreign Legion or in the Israeli Defense Forces or in the British Army or whatever, I would not advise them to come back to South Africa for holiday or leave. Because the time's going to come when they're going to get arrested as mercenaries. Why mercenaries? There's a mercenary act which says you can join Al Qaeda or a freedom fighter movement, no problem. But you cannot join something like the British Army. It's not legal. So you can definitely see where these people are going. Now, something strange then happened. And what was strange is that in the 90s, just after Mr. Mandela took over in the middle 90s, you'll remember he took over in 1994. There were a bit of jihadism. There was some kind of Muslim extremist terror going on in South Africa. Not in a huge scale, nothing like which came later in the West, but bombs were exploding, and one magistrate, which you would call a judge in the US, district court judge, I suppose, he was actually murdered because he was uh, part of a trial. That never happened in the old South Africa. That was totally shocking. Even the hanging judges were never touched. Of course, they had police protection. This guy didn't. But the fact is, he was murdered. And there were bombs exploding at the waterfront, in Cape Town. If you're ever there, brilliant place to visit. Don't like Cape Town, dislike Cape Town intensely, but man, that's something else. That is a place you have to visit. Not only the waterfront, there's really a lot of other things you can go do there too. Go to the Simonstown Naval Base, where the Naval Museum is. We made a whole bunch of episodes on that, because that features in one of the books, which I'm going to talk about just now. I'm just setting you up to explain to you where we come from. So, bombs were exploding. Mr. Mandela got involved. A few of his groups were disbanded and told to, well, they were actually banned. They were told they're terrorists and they should stop their nonsense. And suddenly, overnight, almost in about 96, 7, all Muslim terrorism in South Africa stopped. Just like that. Boom. Overnight. It just stopped. It's very strange. I speak about it in codename OSTM. It's a book where I go into much more detail into it, because in that book we actually look at how counter espionage operations are conducted. In other words, how would you go and catch these people? What happens then? I speak here about a mimic system, which is like a crawler, which is actually designed originally for crime intelligence, where syndicates are involved, for which South Africa has so many. It's a very violent place. But the point is, it disappeared, suspiciously so. If you think about it, there's a large Muslim population in South Africa, and please don't put words in my mouth. I know many of them, friends of mine. Not all of them are jihadis. In fact, it's a few. It is extremely few. But there are a few. And yet they are behaving. Even the ones which comes from overseas. Now, there's rumors, I said this in other of my, suppose you can call it lectures, that White Widow, Samantha Waywait or something like that's her name, her husband, late husband, because he was one of the bombers in the 2005 train attack in London, the tube attack. He died there. She went further. She planned, apparently, the attack on the Kenya Mall, which took place in Nairobi, I believe, in 2010. That is the first time where the terrorists in sub-Saharan Africa actually started asking questions about the Quran. So in other words, if they get hold of you, they will ask you about the Quran. If you cannot answer them, they kill you. In the Middle East and other places, and I discussed this too in a lecture which I did on a series on how to survive as a hostage in sub-Saharan Africa. It is on the Legacy channel as well as Rumble and Odyssey. In the old days, they just used to pull your pants down and see if you are, missing some parts of that what makes you a man. Circumcised. And a lot of American males are, for no reason. There's no legal reason, there's no religious reason, but they are. So I'm told. That's a big problem, man. If you're going to get caught like that, you better have an excuse ready why you are circumcised. Um, because normally only Arabs and Jews are. So the mere fact that you're circumcised makes them very suspicious towards you. And if you then cannot answer the questions on the Quran because you don't know the Quran, or if you're an American, well, they're going to kill you anyway. I mean, your special forces and army and military has caused so much deaths amongst the Arabs, and they supply weapons and things towards Israel, which is causing a lot of death. Now, that is the view from the Arab, right? And that guy is looking at this and he says, I'm going to kill you. I'm going to kill you. And that's why you're so much hated and despised. That's why they call you the great Satan. In fact, you're not the great Satan. You're the second beast of the Bible from a Protestantism viewpoint. Why do I say such shocking things, man? Read Oath of Evil, The War in Protestantism, and the last 12 books I wrote, where I started revealing these things, how everything gets together. Sadly, it is so, and sadly, you cannot deny it, not from a biblical viewpoint anyway. But if you don't know what I'm talking about, read that book, Oath of Evil, because it will open a world for you. You'll understand the Bible prophecies which are playing out, which is one of the reasons why I mention it in every single lecture. It's also a book, funny enough, which sells half of all the GMJ books. Half, if there's 5 sold, 6 sold. If there's 6 of them sold a month, then 3 of them will be Oath of Evil, which is fine with me. I don't care. I don't need the money. I don't need the fame. But I wrote these books to assist. I wrote these books to expose, and I wrote these books to help you. That's why I'm doing it. So anyway, long story short, suddenly the terrorists, these jihadis, were welcomed in South Africa. And yes, in another book we have evidence, I think it is codenamed Null Choice. We start seeing that these terrorists, and I'm speaking jihadis now, and again I say it's a very small percentage, don't hate Muslims because of that. My first late wife was actually a Muslim woman. I understand the culture, and they're wonderful people. Really, if they're on your good side, they're the most fantastic people you can imagine. So don't put words in my mouth. It's a very, very small minority, right? It's like a far right wing, It's actually not as common as Democrats, Democrats in the US and everywhere else start to think. In fact, they're a very, very small percentage of people. But, they like to take conservative people, and I am conservative, and tell us we're far right wing. It's bullshit. You don't know what you're talking about. But, it's like calling a guy anti-Semitic. It is so overused that it's lost its meaning. And it's just crazy. It's crazy what's going on in the world. But anyway, these people are protected actually by the South African intelligence services. That's what comes out in one of the books. Will they admit that? Like hell they will. They will not admit anything, and they actually like these books, because if something comes out in the books, they say, oh, man, it's fiction, you're playing games now. Seriously, it's fiction, man. What's wrong with you? And if you keep on asking questions, and then there's not a single journalist in the world, or not in South Africa anyway, who's willing to investigate this fully, something might happen to you. So don't do it. But anyway, that was the message which I wanted to bring out, is that somehow the South African government copied. This is my suspicion, right? They're denying it. They say it's nonsense, but my suspicion, and in the books of theory, is this. They followed the Swiss, the swine. So I call them Switzerland, Swineland. They followed the example where the Swiss, and this is evidence, we have evidence of this, it's in the books, where the Swiss actually lost one of their Boeings of Swiss Air, Swine Air, to Yasser Arafat's people, the PLO, I think in 1968, 69, perhaps early 70. early 70s. But anyway, they lost this aircraft. It was hijacked. It was flown before over to, I think, Aden, somewhere in the Middle East. They landed there in a deserted RAF wartime base, and they blew the aircraft up on the ground while um, the passengers were already taken off. Those were the early days of terrorism. It wasn't as horrible as it became later in our time. So, so the Swiss went out, and they deny this, but again, we have evidence. They actually went and spoke to Arafat and to the PLO, and they just basically bribed him. Basically said that, look, we will take care of the money side of your organization and yourself through our banking system, and thereby assisting terrorism. Right? That's what you were doing, and still do to this very day. You're terrorist supporters. That's all you are. And so they're washing this money, and because of it, Swiss Air was never attacked again. By chance? Well, if you're an idiot living in Switzerland, then of course you will say, no, that's by chance, Who wants to attack the Swiss now? We're neutral. You're not neutral. There's nothing neutral about you. What did you do with the Russian-Ukraine war? Hello? Sanctions? Hello? Hello? Somebody there? Wake up. Wake up. You're not neutral. What about the 1940? When France fell? And you were in such a panic. Why were you in a panic? Let me explain to you why. Because you knew the Germans will actually find the documents which you did. Yes, you people, your general in charge, the Swant or something, I can't even say the swine's name properly. He was actually sitting down with the French and he was working out what to do in case Nazi Germany will attack. Now you may say to me, Chris, that's not a bad thing, is it? I mean, yeah, but neutrality went there. There's no such thing as neutrality when you sit down on the other side and you speak to France while there's a war going on with Nazi Germany. And then you go and you actually act on it. You started buying rivetsments and the trenches and everything which you agreed to this plan. So don't come to me with a bullshit story that Switzerland is neutral. You're not neutral. Nothing neutral about it. Go and read what I reveal in the When and Where books, which is written together with my wife, Rebecca, during that great illness, which, less than 1% of people died from. And the whole world went totally insane, that during that time, wrote 2 books. And, you'll be surprised what comes out in those books, which is about the Jewish army rescuing people Jews out of occupied France during that war. But no, there's nothing neutral about the Swiss. It came out the other day that they actually started a company with CIA funding money, who is the main partner in this, and then they would have like a telex, which is also like a code machine, like the old Enigmas, much more advanced. And then they would sell this to a third world, including Australia, yes. And then the US could read all your secret messages as well. Yeah, neutral, huh? Neutral. You're an idiot if you think the Swiss are neutral. And you're even a bigger idiot if you trust them 1 inch even with your money. Can't trust. Not trustworthy people. Ask me, I lived there for 3 years. But the fact of the matter is, the South African government, this is my suspicion, then followed that pattern. Because history always repeats. And I have a suspicion, and I call it a Muslim truth, that they actually went to their mates, the PLOs of his life, and, the new guys who came out, and basically said to them, guys, we're not your enemies. We understand you, and a lot of us are actually Muslims too, and we don't like the US that much, and we really don't like the colonial power, the UK. That I agree with totally. We don't like the UK. And so, why don't we come to an agreement? We say to each other, you come to South Africa, you can plan your operations, but you don't conduct operations from from South Africa, nor do you, in any sense of a word, try a terrorist attack. Because if you do, we do have good special forces, and we do. Trust me. Go to legacy conversations and listen to those people speaking. They're much better than your Green Berets, SEAL Team 6, Delta, whatever. We don't rate you highly at all. And I have many reasons why I say so in the book. So don't get angry. Up your damn standards and get to our levels. And then we can speak again. The day that you need 57,000 bullets to conduct a simple hostage rescue and then kill one of the hostages as well, a fellow called Corky from Bloemfontein, my hometown. Yeah. I don't have to explain this to you again. You're not good. That's why we don't rate you highly. But the fact of the matter is, the South African government then said, even if it was unofficial, even if it went through through the spies themselves, because that's what spies also do. They don't just spy. If you're at a certain level at spy master, you actually speak to your other spy master mates, and you conduct messages, and you speak to each other frankly, and you will say something like, when John F. Kennedy got murdered, the US president, within minutes the KGB head was calling his CIA counterpart to say, hands off, we have nothing to do with this. Of course, they had nothing to do with it, because a lot of you will say that the CIA is actually behind that. Well, we discussed that incident actually in my latest book, Codename Snake 606. So I'm not going to tell you exactly where we stand. I'll say this to you. Most definitely, Lee Harvey Oswald had very, very strong CIA connections. He was, in fact, used as an infiltration agent. And the same with Jack Ruby, who actually is a Rubenstein, a Jewish guy from East Europe. Strange how you never read these things. And don't tell me I'm anti-Jewish, please. Stop that nonsense. It's not true. It's just strange to me that it wasn't revealed. Only coming out right now. It doesn't look good. It should have been said from the beginning, but it wasn't. Why not? You see, that's a problem. If you classify something without reason, your conspiracy guys afterwards are going to start asking these questions. And they're not wrong to ask these questions, because virtually everything which used to be a conspiracy came true in the last 5 or 10 years. It's amazing. It's amazing what is happening. Now, this Rubenstein then, of course, killed Oswald. But Rubenstein himself was also very much involved with the CIA. And the CIA at that stage were extremely pissed off with Kennedy because of a Bay of Pigs fiasco and other things which happened there. In fact, we wanted to disband them. So did they murder him? I don't know. Read Snake 606. Book's not about that, but we do discuss it there. And you'll have to make up your own mind. It really depends on where you sit. I mean, it's not above him to do that, to be honest. But don't see that as yes or no. I'm just saying, you're not talking about nice people here. Not at all. So the truth came into me. And since then, there hasn't been a single terrorist incident in South Africa regarding jihadis up to now, touch wood. Every now and then, of course, the US embassy there would issue this warning, oh, there's an attack coming, and if all happens. Thank God. But they do try this nonsense. And the one or two cases where people got arrested for it, I can think of twin brothers. Those were internal disputes between the guys themselves at a certain mosque or not. Also, if you drive down Johannesburg towards Pretoria, you'll see there's a lot of very expensive mosques, which has gone up everywhere. So it's really a bit of a revival going on there. And the other thing also which you see in South Africa is support Palestine. Support Palestine. Of course, you all will know about the court case against Israel. As I say very well, Israel lost that case. You can be angry, you can deny it, you can curse the ICC, International Criminal Court. You can do what the US do and defund them when they don't like them. Issue an order that if they ever go for a US citizen or a US president, then the Green Berets will come in and wipe the entire court out and then rescue these people. Yeah, the plans are there. We're fully aware of it. As I say to you, do you realize this is in The Hague, in Den Haag, which is in Netherlands, which is a NATO country, which you now want to attack? It seems to me that these new cons in Washington does not, they don't get history and they don't get geography either, and they just, they are such strange people. You have to watch them very, very closely. But the fact of the matter is, South Africa made a stand. So I'm not wrong to say to you where South Africa stands these days. They definitely don't stand to the West. Right, so that was the entire scenario. So after I wrote Codename VFO 565, I wanted to bring out what can happen if this goes to its logical conclusion. What will happen if the West, America, NATO, actually wakes up to the fact where South Africa stands and then try to do something about it? Now, of course, this is fiction. It didn't happen, but some of it is based upon training scenarios. So now I'm getting to a second book as written. These books are actually at the end of the series. Even though they were written in the beginning, they're at the end of the series. This is after Angelique and Foxtrot, the two main characters, they get married. She escapes because she's arrested as a French penetration agent. Foxtrot rescues her. He goes back to their place, which is in northern Mozambique, called the Ukutula Ranch, which is a Zulu word for peace. And she disappears somewhere, I think to Corsica, where she's being debriefed because she's been a penetration agent for 28 years. So she has a lot of knowledge. And while they are at Kutula Ranch, Foxtrot and his mate, Gilsong, Peter and the Bele, who came from Special Forces with him, a Zulu man, they're the biggest buddies. They all been involved with Angelique for about 12, 15 years. That's what the first 54 books are about, or first 49 rather, and then these books arrive. So from that comes codename Poor Angelique. Now, most people would say it's Poor Angelique, but it's not. It's a French word, Poor. It means four. Codename for Angelique. Why did I use the French word, man? Because he speaks French fluently and so does my wife, and I a little bit. The point I'm saying is that that's the book's name, Codename Poor Angelique. What happens is a war kicks off. There's a sort of a neutrality between these two groups. The South Africans have said, okay, you people has now done us in. We're very upset about it, but it's okay. And Foxtrot and Angelique says, just leave us alone. We've escaped you. We won't work against you if you leave us alone. And then came some guy and he decides, no, he's not going to leave him alone. He's actually going to strike first and make an end. So there's an attack on the Kutula Ranch in an effort to find Angelique and to kill her. Angelique's not even there. She's still in Corsica. The attack fails. And of course, a war breaks out now because they realize, Angelique and Foxtrot realize they have to attack first. They have to now do a counterattack and get the strikes in and make it as hard as possible and to break this Muslim truce. That's the object. That's what it is for the next 4 books. And one of the ways they do this is they team up with Western intelligence, who you will understand from what I explained before is now actually the enemies of us when you're South Africa. So they team up with these people and they said that they will do is they will go back into South Africa and cause havoc. They will go on sabotage missions. And they're also raising a mercenary force in the back. Is this possible in real life? Yeah, absolutely possible. I think it actually leaked out that there were such plans drawn up by MI6. Or that's what I was told by the people I was working with. So this is not as far-fetched as you might think. But it's a warning. It's a very clear warning on what will happen if South Africa is totally then says, like, we're going BRICS and nothing else. And they will. Definitely they will. Should there a war break out between China, Russia, and the US, NATO, I mean a formal war, not a proxy war like you see in the Ukraine, which the West have lost and is losing so badly. It's exactly what I predicted. Read American military might be bonked, and you'll find out how far behind the times you are with your military anyway. You don't have the weapons, you don't have the people, you don't have the technology. You're heading for failure. End of story. Unless, of course, you change, but you won't. And I don't care. I'm neutral these days. I really don't care. But in the book of Puar and Zalik, Foxtrot and Gilsang is back in South Africa. And for them, it's easy to operate there. I mean, after all, they're South African. They speak Afrikaans, English, Zulu, uh, Portuguese, both of them because of their special forces days. Foxtrot can speak a little bit of French. So does Gilsang, but he's not admitting it. Anyway, we're back in the country. We're doing certain things there. I don't want to give a book away. But one of the things I want to do is I want to sabotage the South African Type 209 submarines, which are based at Simonstown Naval Base. That's why I say to you, go to the naval base. You will find one of the old Daphne class submarines there. I think it's the only submarine museum in Sub-Saharan Africa. And it was on legacy many, many times. There's great people. You can go and walk around in it. Not a lot of money to do so. But that very naval base, of course, there's something called red flag operations. And in code name Phantom, we go into great detail on how these operations are done. In other words, it is training operations where your own special forces will attack your own people. In other words, let us see how secure is your base, your air base, your naval base, your marine base, whatever, it doesn't matter. These guys will disguise themselves as terrorists and they're going to see if they can infiltrate this place. That's called red flag operations. The guys who started it in the US, we discussed this in great detail in codename Phantom, and I will definitely talk about that book as well. It's a great book. Were cashiered at one stage. I mean, they were so successful. They would actually penetrate whatever they wanted to penetrate. They would do it in daylight and they would fly the Soviet Union's red flag while they're doing it and nothing happened to them. That's how lax it was. That's how lax it became. And South Africa is no different. No different whatsoever. So they knew or they know how to get into this Simonstown naval base. They absolutely know how to get into it because they did it before during training missions. And so that's how the book ends. They get into this base and they start sabotaging South Africa's submarines. Now you can laugh if the submarines go and see what I say in codename Ghost. I already spoke about it. And go when I speak about it, codename Oath 19. And there you will find out how South African submarines are actually used and should be used, ought to be used, and are damn, damn good. When I speak to the admirals and I speak to them on legacy conversations, you can go and listen. They will all tell you the same story. They will say to you, well, you know, the submarines quiz, we've never lost any encounter. Whenever we have a training exercise with any Navy, nuclear, non-nuclear, doesn't matter, we win. And that's true. In the history of the submarines from 1969, not a single Navy of any country has ever found the South African submarines first to sink them in an exercise. But the South African submarines found you every single time. It's a matter of record. And you don't know where those submarines are. And many of you will say, oh, we're not operating. That's not what the admirals say. I keep on saying to you, that's nonsense. Don't believe everything you hear on TikTok. It's annoying. And please don't send me these TikTok little videos. I'm older than 17, you know, and I have an IQ higher than that of a girl of 14. I'm not interested in TikTok. I'm not. Please don't send me such crap. Because I will ask you if you've never slept on duty and things like that, and if you've ever been on a base, and if you've seen the military correctness or not. Now you take one person out of 100,000 and suddenly the entire place is like that. You know, it reminds me of us in the old days. You get one guy who's detective who goes too far and he tortures somebody, gets caught out, and now he goes to jail, and suddenly the entire CID, the Criminal Investigation Department, now all of them are bullies and they torture people. It is the biggest bull I've ever had in my life. Let's look at individuals and not do collective punishment. But anyway, in the books, the submarines are operating, and in the books, they are working very well. Because the books are written as a warning to say there are submarines, and if they should be working, they are manned by people who actually know what they're doing. And if you come to South Africa to cause trouble, those submarines might sink you under your ass before you even know it. Bingo. That's my message. So that is codename Puhar Angelique. Then came codename Phoenix. Now, codename Phoenix is actually very important because the question arises in Phoenix is it possible to sink a modern warship with a cube ship? In other words, is it possible that you can have like a disguised trawler or something, and then you want to see if you can get a Navy ship into gunnery range as he closes in on you to investigate whatever, you sent a false SOS out or Mayday or whatever. You just get that thing in range and then you open up with your guns. Can you sink it? Now, bear in mind that no modern warship is armored. They're not armored at all. So, in other words, it is very possible if you can get hold of it that you're going to sink it. And I'm also talking about something like USS Cole. If you have like a robot ship, little rubber duck or something being used quite often in Ukraine these days, I think they sunk one of the Russian fleet, Black Sea Fleet vessels. Russians say it wasn't sunk like that, but the truth will come out at some stage. Um, can you do that? Is it possible to sink it? And the answer is absolutely bloody damn right. Yes, you can. And I spoke to naval commanders before I wrote the book as a warning. And the answer came back every single time, yes, we can. If they can get close enough and they open up, they can do so. Right. So that's what the book is about. I'm setting it up in that book to see if we can get hold of one of the South African frigates and sink it. Now, I don't want to give a book away, but yeah, it's possible to do that. I don't think the admirals ever forgave me for doing that. And the ship is not really sunk. It's still operational. When I was last in Cape Town, I actually saw it. And I stood there and I said to Rebecca, you see that ship, honey? She says, yeah, I see it. I say, code name Phoenix. That ship is the one which got sunk. And it's a story of tremendous bravery. I mean, I've summarized it now for you, and perhaps I've given the book away for you. But really read it because it's very interesting how this is done. Because you have to get that naval ship to come to you. And for that ship to come to you, you have to send signals. You have to, almost control them in. You have to get the intelligence to believe it's worth that ship's while to come and look at you. And then you have to get it close, and then you have to shoot at it. Yeah, so we went through the entire motion. Okay, right, so that's Phoenix. And then after that comes codename Lise. Now, those who don't speak French will say codename Lisa or something, but for me it's Lise. The name refers to a woman called Odette Churchill. Now, Odette Churchill, she later got divorced from this Peter Churchill. I was not family of the arch liar, Winston. May he not rest in peace. Don't like the guy. Think he's a shyster who got lucky. It's in many of my books. Why? Because I don't say things like this just to annoy you. Got reasons why I say it. But Peter Churchill and Odette was actually spies. They worked for Special Operations Executive in the French section. In other words, they were the ones who during wartime dropped by parachute or boat into occupied France, and there they started their spy networks, but they were also, of course, saboteurs. Now, Odette, she went with us as a radio operator. I think she was one of the first females to work as a radio operator. And she got caught. The entire network actually got caught by the Gestapo, by the army, the Abwehr, or whoever was German intelligence. They caught him. And she was tortured most brutally. In fact, they pulled her nails out of her toes. She took all the blame. She said that Peter is just a big hunk of a guy. At that stage, I think they were already lovers. They were not married, but married after the war. And that she's actually the brains of the operation, and he was just there as the muscle. In fact, the man was at, I think, at Oxford or Cambridge. No way he was that stupid. He wasn't. But anyway, she took the blame and she went to a concentration camp. So did he. But with a name like that as Churchill, I mean, they kept him quite safe. And this does not reflect anything on Peter Churchill. He's a wonderful man when he was in life. And I think Odette is also dead now. But she used the word Lise. Lise was, I think, her code name Lise. And that's why I used the book Codename Lise, because Angelique Dawson has one hero in life in the espionage world, and that would be Odette Churchill. She just loves this woman. She knows everything about it. She describes Odette's story. And, you know, there were a lot of these, about half of the female agents who jumped into France were captured. And most of them died horrifically in the concentration camps. Some of them were executed right at the end. We do honor them in the books by bringing out their story. I can think of codename Rebecca 65. We also speak of one particular one, whose name now escapes me. But she was an Indian woman, because you remember the Indian nation, India was fighting with the Brits and losing a lot of people, because the Brits lost almost no people during the Second World War. It's pathetic how little they lost. But read Codename Caribbean, and then there we discuss it in great detail. The lack of losses from the UK side, and thereby I mean the British Army. The Dominion forces at India lost per capita a lot more people than what the Brits lost. And so the US also, if you take the US casualties in Japan, as well as in Europe, as well as in North Africa, it's nothing. I don't regret not any death. In other words, what I'm saying to you is anyone who died, it's a tragic thing. But if you look at how many casualties the Russians had, the Soviet Union's 27 million. If you look at the casualty rate for the Chinese, 12 million. If you look at the Germans themselves, about 10 million. And then you look at a few 100,000 of the US and UK, you have to laugh. And by the way, the country who lost the most per capita was Rhodesia. Yeah, the same country who got kicked in the ass by the Brits, you know. Yeah, these things happen. Don't trust the Brits, man. Don't trust the Brits. And I won't mention the concentration camps again. My wife asked me not to. But it's in every book. There's a reason for that. But anyway, so a lot of them died, and she was very lucky to survive. This woman, Odette. There is a code name Odette as well, by the way. But we'll speak about that code name later. And so she got the George Cross, which is the same as the Victoria Cross. Probably one of our highest decorated women agents during the entire war. That is why the book is called Lise. Now, what we wanted to is discover in Lise, like in every book, we take a subject and we see, is this possible? Did this happen in history? Can we do the same today? And that's exactly what we're doing with Lise. I wanted to know, is it possible to sink modern warships by gunfire from shore batteries. Can I do that? Well, your problem is if they arrive with an attack helicopter, which they do, which is a major flipping problem with a Roy Falk. And there is an episode coming on the Roy Falk on Legacy as well, still in the future, but it will come out, done by the test pilot, Trevor Alston, fantastic video, as well as the experimental model from which the Roy Falk attack helicopter actually comes. So there's 2 episodes coming. But I wanted to see if it's possible to sink like a frigate, a modern warship. Is it possible? Can I do that? And the answer is once again, yeah. Happened a lot of times in the war. I think in the First World War, I think at Gallipoli, that place where France has lost more soldiers than Anzac. That's Australia and New Zealand combined. But it's a big deal for New Zealand and Australia, but France doesn't even know about it. Nah, you go speak to the French. Remember Gallipoli? Also unimportant. But anyway, that is where a whole bunch of pre-dreadnought battleships and things were sunk by shore batteries. So can it be done? Yes, but you have to get those ships in range. Once again, you need something there. You need something like let's say the same ship which sank the frigate in the open sea in the previous book during Phoenix. You need to make that thing lie on the shore, and now these ships comes to investigate the moment they get into range. You open up. But it's also a book which is mentioned quite a lot in the other books. Now, the books can be read one by one. I said that to you all the time. So if you read one book, you don't have to read the rest of the books, but they do follow in each other, and they do refer to each other. And Lees is being referred to quite a bit, not because of the ships which were sunk, but because Angelique herself is now pregnant with the twins, which is called Lees and Odette. Don't have to wonder why. But she's still running operations, this entire thing to destabilize South Africa. And she is, of course, in the forefront where she should not be, but she was like that in all her life. You can't get her away from the action. And she's shot. So she also gets shot in this book, and it causes a lot of nightmares for Foxtrot, who's trying to keep her safe and also commanding these attacking forces and so forth. But that is a book where she gets shot. Right, so that is Lees. And then come the last book, which is called Codename Dawson. Now, all these books together, Codename Puhar Angelique, Codename Phoenix, Codename Lees, Codename Dawson, those 4 books form a series inside the series, which we call the Eggbreaker War, because that is where they attacked South Africa. That is where they said, we had enough. You attacked us, we're going to make life hell for you. We're going to sink your ships. We're going to blow up your submarines. We're going to attack you. We're going to kill your head of your, of your intelligence. A guy who ordered the detention of Angelique, and then she got tortured. He's taken out in Puhar Angelique. If you drive towards the Secret Service in Pretoria East, which is just outside on the Delmas Road, and you look to the left, you see there's, just before you reach it, you will see there's like a little hill. There's like a power, these boxes and things standing there, probably not working anymore. But there's a little knoll, there's a little hill. And if you read the book and you stand there, you'll see exactly where the snipers were lying to kill this guy. You can see that entire scenario playing off inside your your head, because anything which is written in the GMJ books, even with Puhar Angelique, if you go to a naval base in Simonstown, you will be able to see how they got into the place. You'll be able to see where they moved to sabotage the submarines. You'll see everything playing off in front of you. All the books are like that. If the books refer to a certain mountain or a certain whatever, or a certain town, you can go there. You're going to see exactly what happened in the book. That's how they wrote it. And that's why a lot of people don't know what's fiction and what's not fiction. But I've explained that before. So anyway, in Dawson, which is the last book of the Eggbreaker War, Angelique has now sort of recovered. She was in France. She was taken out, flown out, emergency flown out, get to France, gets treated. She's still on wobbly. She's still not really there. But now she's coming back because they want to negotiate. But as I say in the books, if you surrender to the enemy, it's normally not that big a problem because they're either going to kill you or not, you know, or they're going to mistreat you or not, like they did at Vietnam. And, well, we read Voices, War Crimes USA, and see what the US did to a certain Iraqi Air Force general, a pilot, a C-130 pilot. Yeah, they tortured him to death. Yeah. And you know what's interesting? It didn't take them, an hour or so to do it. No, it took them days, many, many days. So in other words, the brutality is so much more because, you can understand if you, in a moment of anger, just throttle a guy or do something to him. It's not right, but it's understandable. But when you torture somebody over a period of weeks to death, really? Really? You call yourself a force for good? No, mate. No. You should look in the mirror. You're a second beast. You're acting like the second beast. Again, read Oath of Evil, the war on Protestantism. You'll see what you've become. Because for you, it will look like it's normal, it's fine, it's the Christians taking over again. But the Christianity you want to follow is not Christianity. It's satanic. It is a Catholic system which is identified in the Bible as the first beast who gets its power from the dragon. The dragon is Satan himself, Lucifer. And if I shock you, read those books. And please, I don't hate you if you're Catholic. Don't say such things. It's horrible. It's hurtful. It's nonsense. I don't hate you. Really don't hate you. In fact, my late wife, the second late wife, was Catholic. The first one was Muslim. The second one was Catholic. And Rebecca grew up in a Jewish house. Bingo. I don't really care. To me, it doesn't matter. For me, faith is something which is in your heart. It's yourself. It's your own story. I don't judge you because you are, a Catholic or a Muslim or a Jew or whatever. There's good people in all of them. But I'm telling you what the biblical viewpoint is from a Protestantism viewpoint. Whether you like it or not, that is the view. That is what people like Martin Luther and every single other one you can mention will tell you that. There's three of you. Isn't that funny? There's three Godheads too, isn't there? There's God the Father, there's Jesus, and there's the Holy Spirit. What does the devil do? Well, he can't do much. He's a created being. So what he does is he mimics. So let's create three things also here. Let's have a dragon. Let's have Satan. Let's have a Catholic system. That's the first beast in the Bible. The one who blasphemies, the one who wears scarlet. Yeah, it's completely read Revelations, Revelation, the book of Revelation 13, I believe. Read the book of Daniel. Do you know the book of Daniel and Revelation was so important that Luther, when he translated the Bible, those were the first two books which he actually translated because he found it so incredible. And it is. And people will say to me, but yeah, man, we don't understand the book of Revelation. Why do you think it's got a name called Revelation? There's nothing secret about it. You just need to study it. And if you don't know where, read Oath of Evil. It will explain it to you and will give you all the links where people much smarter than me can actually explain it to you much better than what I can do in a 650-page book. So the third one is the second beast, and that is identified as the US of A. And the US of A is going to implement the will of the first beast, which means fascism, which means the Middle Ages is going to come back. And it's happening. It's happening as we speak. But unless you know the prophecies in the Bible, there's no way you're going to know. You're just going to know. You're going to be like a sheep. You're just going to not understand what's happening. But I tell you, there's a lot of us who actually do understand you. Seventh-day Adventist Church, of which I'm a proud member. 22 million of us. Biggest Protestant church in the world. Yeah. Not the little 50 people or 150 people you have at your local church. No. This is a worldwide thing. It's the only answer to the Catholic system. Do you know that? Own hospitals, own universities, doing good across the world. Bible and Bible alone. Sola Scriptura. Follow the 10 Commandments. Why? Because the 10 Commandments is the law of God. What does the fourth one say? Remember my Sabbath. Remember. No other commandment say remember. You know, the Lord must have thought to himself, you people are going to forget about the Sabbath. Because there's going to be a first beast. And this beast is going to say, well, you know, there's a mark of my authority, the mark of a beast. Let us move this, you know, the Sabbath thing of the Lord. Let's move it. Let's move it to Sunday. And then we tell the people, you know, Jesus got up on the first day of a week. Doesn't matter that the Lord says honor the last day of a week. Doesn't matter. No. You see what I mean? Guys, you need this information. Don't throw stones at me. Find out these things before you get angry. Because I've studied it for many years. It took me 5 years to become a Seventh-day Adventist. I will make a video on the Oath of Evil book as well. But really, you need to look around yourself. Point I'm trying to make to you is once you're in negotiations, it's not the same as surrendering. And there you have to be damn well awake. Especially when you negotiate with people like in New South Africa who is not stupid. They're not stupid. They really know how to negotiate. Look at Africa in general. You were sitting here is probably from the West. Tell me, all those billions of dollars these African people, nations took from you through the years, hundreds of billions of aid. Tell me, did it change anything? No, it's still a shithole. But yet every year you just keep on giving more. Yeah. Man, they're playing you. They're playing you like a guitar, man, like a violin. So don't underestimate these people. Don't think they because they're black or they're perhaps not as educated from a university as Grant as yours, that they're stupid. They're not stupid. They're very good at this, actually. Let's not go the racist thing. When I wrote that book, American Military Might Debunked, book 56, I wrote it because I found out in my research and what I've seen in the shadows, which you call the great game. What I've seen of you, the Western militaries, NATO militaries, was so shockingly bad. That includes your spies. That was so bad in counterterrorism that I thought to myself, man, this is impossible. Is this really the great Green Berets? And they fuck up like that all the time. Oh, is this really? This is MI6. Wow, James Bonds. Wow, very pathetic, man. What about the CIA? Oh, these guys don't know what they're doing. And I was like shocked. And then I realized, wow, you really don't know what you're doing. And I started looking deeper and deeper. And then I thought, okay, let me write it into the books. Perhaps somebody will read it. Perhaps somebody will wake up. Perhaps somebody will understand that we, your friends from the outside, what we see, which you cannot see because you're arrogant. But, you know, at the end of the day, no one cares. Doesn't matter. It's too late now. You're heading for defeat. You're heading for defeat. That's it. Get used to it. You can't fight the major war anymore. You don't have it. You just don't have it. But anyway, don't underestimate people just because you don't know them. Don't underestimate anything. I was told, you know what, we hear what you say, but you're from Africa, man. We don't think we can listen to you. That's racist. That's racist. Listen to what I have to say before you do that. In that book, American Military Might Debunked, I took all these things which was revealed in the books and I put them in there. So it's not a story. It's hundreds and hundreds, 600 pages of facts saying to you, Okay, let's look at this weapon system. Let's look at what the Russians have. Let's look at what the Chinese have. And then you have to look at it, and then you will do your research, and you'll find out, wow, I'm 100% correct. They don't just take it out of the air, from sock. No. Those are facts. So don't underestimate these people. And Angelique Dawson, when she arrives to negotiate, does not underestimate these people, but she gets betrayed. And she almost died. And Foxtrot, in fact, thinks she did die. And one hell of a fight breaks out. But as luck would have it, she did survive. But that's what that book is about. It's about negotiations. It's about to see how far you can trust this new government. The answer is flippant. You can trust them as far as my nose is long. And I don't have a long nose. No, you can't trust them at all. But you can trust them in a certain way. They're going to act the way they should act as a BRICS nation. It's the same as we can trust the US to act as a second beast. We're seeing it now. Especially now when 2 days before I made this video, you got a new Pope. This is the Antichrist in the Protestant faith, seen as the Antichrist. Not he himself, the papacy, the office. Again, it's not against people. It's against a system, right? Which is sun worship. It's from the devil. And I've very good reasons why I say this in the books. And now you've got an American as the new Pope. For the first time ever, this Bishop of Rome will be able to speak English fairly well. He'll be able to connect to you. He's going to come over as great. And the Trump presidency is already implementing Agenda 2025. Yes, we know about it. Suddenly you have an office of faith or whatever created there in the White House. Really? Have you heard of separation between church and state? Well, it's got to disappear. And what do we mean by that? It's very interesting. Because when you talk about separation between state and church, it's in the Constitution. But it only really has to do with the first 4 commandments. In other words, which God, how to service God, when to service God, and to regulate that through law, like it used to be in the Middle Ages. You either attended church, and if you didn't attend church, they will come and look for you. And if you don't have a good reason, well, they can have a flogging there in the marketplace just to teach you a lesson or two. If you still don't want to come to church, well, we can burn you on the stake. You ever heard of the Inquisition? Do you know the Inquisition still exists? Yeah. Those offices still exist. So it bothers me when I see the White House suddenly with a presidential order, which nobody even reports about. Suddenly these things start happening. You think it's by chance? If the Bible tells you it's a second beast, why don't you just believe the Bible? And then look for signs that it's actually like that. And you'll find it. You'll find it. There's so many. It's in many of my books, especially Oath of Evil. And so all of this together makes the Eggbreaker War. And I went through the books quite quickly now because these books you'll have to read from Puar Angelique, Phoenix, Lees, and Dawson. And once you've got there, you will understand the entire Muslim truce and the attempts to break this truce, which of course is fictionalized and never happened. The Muslim truce still exists. It is still there to this very day. And that's my message. And I really hope you enjoyed this. And spread the word, please. If you're interested, get hold of the books. They're all available in audio. They're all on Kindle. They're all in hardcover. They're all in softcover. They're all on Amazon. I will leave links here as well as below in the description. And thank you for listening this far. I appreciate you doing that. God bless. we'll see you again next time.